Okay, Alyssa, you are on.
Good evening. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it into our website, our podcast, and our YouTube channel. We record in audio only. Feel free to use the podcast on our website, along with your big book as a resource if you missed the study portion of the meeting. The study portion is also listed on the website so you can follow along.
Keep going, the rest of it.
Okay. Tonight's recap will begin on page 89, Practical Experience, and will be read by Miss Cindy. And tonight's study, we will pick up on page 91, Usually the Family, and that will be read by Kenny.
Thank you.
Announcements?
Yes, hi family, my name is Jamie. I'm a very grateful recovered alcoholic. And we are in between quarterly assemblies. So we have a group conscience coming up it will be on October 21st at 6:30 p.m. Central Time right here in this very room. If you are not a registered home group member with us, you are more than welcome to come and attend and see how we operate. If you would like to become a member of this group, we would love to have you, and all we need is a couple of things like name, sobriety date, phone number, and email address. So those of you who are home group members, by all means, keep your eyes open for emails, because Tricia will be sending out my GSR report from last assembly, and the week before that, probably on a Sunday, we will be having a Trusted Servants meeting to talk about the agenda as well. So that's it for announcements, and now the opening of our meeting. Good evening, family. Again, my name is Jamie, very grateful recovered alcoholic, and welcome to the Lppbbsg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group. Let's get focused by having a 3-minute moment of meditation followed by our family's fog light prayer.
And I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name is Alyssa. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to start the meditation in a minute, so please take a moment to get situated.
Please be aware of background noises when you are unmuted and sharing as to not distract others or yourself. We suggest we all observe proper Zoom etiquette. If you wouldn't do it in a live meeting, please don't do it here. And a friendly reminder that absence of profanity offends no one. Please keep yourself muted during someone else's share, and we will call on you in the order that hands are raised.
From the forward to the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, we of Alcoholics Anonymous are many thousands of men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this the main purpose of this book and of this group.
For the meditation, some suggestions are: focus on your breath and posture, breathe in God, and breathe out self.
Take this time to reconnect with God. Let the craziness of the day drift away and ask God to help you focus on the study.
And on that note, let's invite the resident monks in to come in and do what the monks do. Enjoy your time with God. And for those of you who wish, if you'd like to join us in our family's Foglight Prayer, coming to a screen near you. Foglight Prayer. God, let your love shine through us like a fog light, so that those that are lost, sick, and dying can find your love through us. Amen.
Amen. And let's have our secretary's report. Come on in, Miss Lisa.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa. I'm also known as Seashell Pickle. My name is Lisa. I'm your recovered alcoholic secretary. I've asked Jenny to read the recovered statement. We read this notice to explain why many people in this group identify as recovered rather than recovering, and what it exactly means to be a recovered alcoholic. Take it away, Jenny.
My name is Jenny. I'm a grateful alcoholic. Recovered. We are not cured of alcoholism. Recovered but not cured. That presents a conflict to some alcoholics. If we were cured, we would be able to drink responsibly. No, we are not cured. The allergic reaction to alcohol will remain with us for a lifetime. But we have been restored to sanity. That was the problem. The main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. Page 23. We are now sane where alcohol is concerned. Consequently, we have recovered.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you for joining us tonight. We meet every Tuesday starting at 5:30 p.m. Central Time with the Gerbil Fellowship Cage, where we chatter for an hour before the start of the meeting. Feel free to bring side dishes to share with the buzzards. Our Big Book study starts promptly at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, and we ask that you be courteous and ready to begin at the sound of the foghorn. We take our Big Book study seriously. Because of this, chat will be disabled during the study. In the 1940s, when the only elements to sobriety were God, a Big Book, and one recovered alcoholic working with an untreated alcoholic, the success rate was as follows. From the foreword to the second edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, page XX, of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapsed, and the remainder, those who stayed on with AA, showed improvement. Can we have a show of hands of people joining us for the first time? See anybody?
No, I think we're good.
And then the recovered alcoholics. These are your potential sponsors. Is anyone celebrating a milestone this week?
Hi, my name is Linda. I'm an alcoholic. Tomorrow on the 25th, I'll have 36 years sobriety.
Yay, Linda.
Wonderful. Keep coming back, Linda. Next week we'll give you a chip.
My name's Alyssa. I'm a recovered alcoholic, and on the 18th, so last Wednesday, I celebrated 3 years of sobriety.
Congratulations, Alyssa.
And I received my
Okay, good.
Facebook group.
Okay, because I was not prepared to pull one up. Beautiful.
So thank you for my tip.
Okay. If you should require a big book of your own, we have large print editions available that can be sent to you by buzzard mail. Delivery time questionable. Please remember to practice our 7th tradition by donating to the group address, Venmo, or PayPal posted in the chat and on the screen. Our suggestion is to purchase a big book and take an untreated alcoholic through the program of recovery. Please visit our website posted in the chat. Thank you and see you next week.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Great job, and thank you, Jenny, for doing the recovered statement tonight. From Chapter 2, there is a solution. The tremendous fact for each one of us is that we've discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism.
This is an open meeting, and as such, all who have an interest in alcoholism and our program of recovery are welcome. Because this is an open meeting, you need not identify yourself nor your reason for being here. If you do not wish to do so, your anonymity will be protected. We ask that you protect ours.
While this is an open meeting, membership in this group is limited to those who wish to recover from alcoholism and have a desire to stop drinking for good and all. Each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is a potential sponsor of a new member and should clearly recognize the obligations and duties of such a responsibility.
Before we begin our study of the Big Book, last week we reviewed Tradition 8. Tonight, let's take a quick look at Tradition 9. Please refer to page 562 of Alcoholics Anonymous. Come on in, Shayna.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Shayna, alcoholic. Tonight is Tradition 9. Our groups ought never be organized, but that we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. So in the real world, businesses and other groups are organized. There is a hierarchy of authority established so that some members of the organization have the authority to direct the actions of others. But in AA, no one has this kind of authority. The groups are fellowship of equals. The decisions are made by the group as a whole and not by one or a few members. By creating and maintaining this atmosphere of true fellowship, AA groups ensure that even the newest members can quickly gain a feeling of belonging. If no one is an authority, how are the executive decisions made? Decisions are made by the group as a whole through what is known as the group conscious vote. Any member of the group can request that a business meeting be held separate from the group's regular meeting time for the discussion of any issue affecting the group as a whole. After discussion of the issue, during which all members have an opportunity to express their opinions, the group votes on the issue and the majority vote decides the question. In this manner, the group maintains unity by providing an atmosphere in which all voices are heard, from the oldest long-timer to the newcomer, and everyone has an equal voice and vote. Given said that, the focus of Tradition 9 is on service, and it is also, let me scroll up here a little bit. It is also the principle, the spirit of service. So from the Fort of the 12 and 12, AA's 12 traditions apply to the life of the fellowship itself. They outline the means by which AA maintains its unity and relates itself to the world about it, the way it lives and grows. So the focus, again, is on service. the most important person, that walks into the group of Alcoholics Anonymous is the newcomer. Without them, we will surely die as an individual and as a whole. If we try to organize them, generally he will flee. After all, his life is already unmanageable. So you may ask, how then can we structure him into becoming a recovered alcoholic who's responsible for reaching out to the still suffering alcoholic? I've lost my place now. Now, hopefully I didn't confuse you all thoroughly. But anyhow, the ninth tradition not only contains the secret of the divine order, but also contains the personal principle that will keep an alcoholic like me in divine order. It is simple. It is to give up the control. That's where I was going with that. If I'm trying to control everybody else, pretty much they're not going to stay. And that is, so anyhow, I stopped organizing myself. I stopped trying to organize God into my limited ideas of order. My life gets unimpeded flow of divine love with you, myself, and with God. So whenever the divine order of the relationship is disturbed, I can restore order by making the unmade amends that put my life out of order. And so that's part of how the ninth step and then the ninth tradition kind of go hand in hand. The ninth tradition answers the question of how do I stay reconciled with God today, is by implying that I remain in the divine order by not organizing you, myself, or God, and spontaneously being of service to you and God. So I guess pretty much the ultimate issue, or the ultimate thing here at the bottom, is that the only problem we really ever have is separation from God. So if I'm trying to control everybody and everything and align everybody, it's not going to work. So the tradition 9, from what I'm understanding, is not allowing us to kind of take each other out, but to more or less come together as a whole and make executive decisions together for the life of AA. So I appreciate you all listening to me ramble. I apologize if I have lost you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shana. I'd like to give Shana a big hand for doing the last 3 weeks of being our traditionalist. And next week we will have Kenny coming in to start with tradition 10, and then he'll do 11 and 12 after that. So it's time for our weekly segment of That Ain't in the Book. We hear a lot of stuff said in meetings that can't be reconciled with the program as described in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. One of those things that we often hear is, just do the next right thing. So Art is going to come in and tell us what it has to say on page 86 in the 4th paragraph. Welcome, Art.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Art. I'm a recovered alcoholic. And what it says on page 86, under these circumstances, we can employ, oh no, that's not the right place either.
Need a cue?
Yeah.
Okay, let me get back to it. Starting with, we may not be able.
We may not be able to determine which course to take. Here we ask God for inspiration and intuitive thought for our decision.
Thank you, sir.
As we study, please make use of the pens, highlighters, and rulers so that you can share this experience with another alcoholic.
In order for us to stay focused as we study the Big Book, we use the Big Book study guide prepared by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff of the Dallas Primary Purpose Group.
Tonight, we are going to start our recap on page 89, which will be read by Miss Cindy, followed by our study portion, which will be read by Mr. Kenny.
And I was going to repost that, but I haven't got back to it yet. So, after the page is read, we will ask questions from the imaginary podium, starting back on our study portion that Kenny takes us to tonight. The answers will be one sentence unless otherwise specified, and multi-part questions are simply one sentence answer, split up by commas, semicolons, hyphens, and other fun bits of punctuation.
Basically, in English, what that means is that we are going to read the material once through and then dissect the information a second time with a question and answer format. Notice how the language in the questions gives us a new light in which to consider the study material.
This is important because hearing the question and rereading the content offers a definite way of comprehending the material covered. After we've completed the study, we open up for comment, questions, observations based on what we just read. And if you have spiritual experiences with this information, please, by all means, feel free to share. Keep your share on topic and under 5 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, we'll do something real goofy to get your attention, to let you know that your time is up.
However, Big Book study is not therapy. Should you begin sharing on topics which are more appropriately discussed in a different setting, i.e. your sponsor, please do not be offended when we cut the conversation short and send the buzzards nipping at your heels. For that purpose, we have fellowship before meetings and after our study time.
You can never go wrong by commenting on the pages studied, which brings us to the words of one of our co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps, is the sole purpose of any Alcoholics Anonymous group. And I know you got this part, Pinky.
All right, so how we arrived at this point, and I remember what you said. So 4 years ago, well, actually, we're coming up on almost 5 in January. The meeting started in Jamie's living room, and then as we all know, what happened in 2020, COVID hit, and we used Zoom to meet, and some of us joined then, and this is a 96-week study. We go through, we hit on the spiritual experience 3 times, and we do Dr. Bob's Nightmare, but we start at the title page of the book. So we are now in, I believe it's our 4th season of this. And so keep coming back, because this well-oiled machine is a moving, and we'll stop for you to get on, but we don't push anybody off. So you have your golden ticket, and we are glad you're here. So
Absolutely love it. Thank you, Pinky. Well done. Before we start the recap, we will need 5 or 6 virtual hands raised if you would like to be one of our answer readers. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting is recorded, so we can put it onto our website and our YouTube channel. And on that note, Cindy, would you come in and read our recap, please? Welcome.
Hi, thank you, Jamie. Absolutely. My name is Cindy. I'm a recovered alcoholic. This is my very first service position for Primary Purpose. and I'm excited to be of service. It's Chapter 7, Working with Others, page 89. Practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. It works when other activities fail. This is our 12th suggestion. Carry this message to other alcoholics. You can help when no one else can. You can secure their confidence when others fail. Remember, they are very ill. Life will take on new meaning. To watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow about you, to have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. We know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. Perhaps you are not acquainted with any drinkers who want to recover. You can easily find some by asking a few doctors, ministers, priests, or hospitals. They will be only too glad to assist you. Don't start out as an evangelist or reformer. Unfortunately, a lot of prejudice exists. You will be handicapped if you arouse it. Ministers and doctors are competent and you can learn much from them if you wish. But it happens that because of your own drinking experience, you can be uniquely useful to other alcoholics. So cooperate, never criticize. To be helpful is our only aim. When you discover a prospect for Alcoholics Anonymous, find out all you can about him. If he does not want to stop drinking, don't waste your time trying to persuade him. You may spoil a later opportunity. This advice is given for his family also. They could be patient, realizing they are dealing with a sick person. If there is any indication that he wants to stop, have a good talk with the person most interested in him, usually his wife. Get an idea of his behavior, his problems, his background, the seriousness of his condition, and religious leanings. You need this information to put yourself in his place, to see how you would like him to approach you if the tables were turned. Sometimes it is wise to wait till he goes on a binge. The family may object to this, but unless he is in a dangerous physical condition, it is better to risk it. Don't deal with him when he is very drunk, unless he is ugly and the family needs your help. Wait for the end of a spree, or at least for a lucid interval. Then let his family or a friend ask him if he wants to quit for good, and if he would go to any extreme to do so. If he says yes, then his attention should be drawn to you as a person who has recovered. You should be described to him as one of a fellowship who, as part of their own recovery, try to help others and who will be glad to talk to him if he cares to see you. If he does not want to see you, never force yourself upon him. Neither should the family hysterically plead with him to do anything, nor should they tell him much about you. They should wait for the end of his next drinking bout. You might place his book where he can see it in the interval. Here, no specific rule can be given. The family must decide these things, but urge them not to be over anxious, for that might spoil matters. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your service tonight, Cindy. Well done. Glad to have you on board with us. And Kenny is going to come in and do our study portion. Where are you there, Kenny? I know you're home. There you are.
Put my picture on. Okay, there I am. Okay, I'm Kenny. I'm an alcoholic. Page 91. Usually the family should not try to tell your story. When possible, avoid meeting the man through his family. Approach through a doctor or an institution is a better bet. If your man needs hospitalization, he should have it, but not forcibly unless he is violent. Let the doctor, if he will, tell him he has something in the way of a solution. When your man is better, the doctor might suggest a visit from you. Though you have talked with the family, lead them out of the first discussion. Under these conditions, your prospect will see he is under no pressure. He will feel he can deal with you without being nagged by his family. Call on him while he is still jittery. He may be more receptive when depressed. See your man alone if possible. At first, engage in general conversation. After a while, turn the talk to some phase of drinking. Tell him enough about your drinking habits, symptoms, and experiences to encourage him to talk about himself. If he wishes to talk, let him do so. You will thus get a better idea of how you ought to proceed. If he is not communicative, give him a sketch of your drinking career up to the time you quit, but say nothing for the moment of how that was accomplished. If he is in a serious mood, dwell on the trouble liquor has caused you, being careful not to moralize or lecture. If his mood is light, tell him humorous stories of your escapade. Get him to tell some of his. When he sees you, know all about the drinking game. Commence to describe yourself to him as an alcoholic. Tell him how baffled you were, how you finally learned that you were sick. Give him the accounts of the struggles you made to stop. Show him the mental twist which led to the first drink of a spree. We suggest you do this for a while. We suggest you do this. We have done it in the chapter of alcoholism. If he is an alcoholic, he will understand at once. He will match your mental inconsistencies with some of his own. If you are satisfied that he's a real alcoholic, begin to dwell on the hopeless feature of the malady. Show him from your own experience how the queer mental conditions surrounding the first drink prevent normal functioning of willpower. Don't at this stage refer to the book unless he has seen it and wishes to discuss it. And be careful not to brand him as an alcoholic. Let him draw his own conclusion. If he sticks to the idea that he can still control his drinking, tell him that possibly he can, if he is not too alcoholic. But insist that if he is severely afflicted, there may be a little chance that he can recover by himself. Continue to speak of alcoholism as an illness, a fatal malady. Tell him that conditions of the body and the mind which accompanies it. Keep his attention focused mainly on your personal experience. Explain that many are doomed who never realize their predicament. Doctors are rightly loath to tell alcoholic patients the whole story unless it will serve some good purpose. But you may tell him about the hopelessness of alcoholism because you offer a solution. You will soon have your friend admitting he has many, if not all, of the traits of alcoholic. If his own doctor is willing to tell him that he is an alcoholic, so much the better. Even though your protege may not have entirely admitted his condition, he will become very curious to know how you got well. Let him ask that question, if he will. Tell him exactly what happened to you. Stress the spiritual feature freely. If the man be agnostic or an atheist, make it emphatic that he does not have to agree with your conception of God. Tell him to choose any conception he likes, provided it makes sense to him. The main thing is that he be willing to believe in a power greater than himself, that he lives by spiritual principles.
Excellent, Kenny. Thank you so much for being of service tonight. Greatly appreciated and well done, my friend. And so now we are going to go right back to 91 where Kenny started reading and ask the questions, and the answers will come from what we just read. For our readers, please speak clearly into your mic so that we can hear you. And the batting order tonight is going to be Linda, Stephanie, Nancy, William, and Art. So, Miss Linda, we are going to kick it off with you. William, you still need to unmute yourself, sir. The first question comes to you, Linda. What else should the family not try to do?
Usually the family should not try to tell their story.
Thank you so much. Stephanie, welcome, sister. When possible, how should we not meet the drinker?
When possible, avoid meeting a man through his family.
Thank you. And Nancy, welcome home, my friend. What is a better introduction?
Approach to a doctor or institution is a better bet.
Thank you. And William, do we oppose medical treatment for the drinker?
If your man needs hospitalization, you should have it, but not forcible unless he is violent.
Thank you, sir. And Art, welcome. Who can best introduce the prospect to your possible solution?
Let the doctor, if you will, tell him he has something in the way of a solution.
Thank you. And coming back to you, Miss Linda, when might you see him?
When your man is better, the doctor might suggest a visit from you.
Thank you. And Steph, should the family be present at our first meeting?
Though you have talked with the family, leave them out of the first discussion.
Thank you. And Nancy, why is that a good idea?
Under these conditions, your prospect will see he is under no pressure.
Thank you very much. William, it will let him what?
Will feel he cannot deal with you without being nagged by his family.
Thank you. And Art, when do you really want to have your first talk with a serious drinker?
Call on him while he's still jittery.
Thank you. And did I mention that Alyssa would be coming in with some comments? She'll be coming in with about 5 comments. Linda, coming back to you. Why is that?
He may be more receptive when depressed.
When an alcoholic is still jittery and depressed, he may be most willing to do anything to not have to go through this misery again.
Thank you so much. And Stephanie, how do we want to first meet the prospect?
See your man alone, if possible.
Thank you. Nancy, how do we begin?
At first, engage in general conversation.
Thank you. William, then start talking about what?
After a while, turn the talk to some phase of drinking.
Thank you. Art, two-part question. A, what do we tell him? And B, what are we hoping for?
Tell him enough about your drinking habits, symptoms, and experiences to encourage him to speak of himself.
Thank you. Miss Linda, coming right back to you. If he starts talking, what do we do?
If he wishes to talk, let him do so.
Thank you. Stephanie, what will you learn initially?
You will thus get a better idea of how you ought to proceed.
Thank you. And Nancy, what do you do if he doesn't want to talk?
If he is not communicative, give him a sketch of your drinking career up to the time you quit.
Thank you. William, is this a good time to talk about our program of recovery?
Say nothing for the moment of how that was accomplished.
Thank you, sir. Art, another two-part question for you. A, if he seems to be serious about our conversation, what do we dwell on? And B, what are we careful not to do?
If he is in a serious mood, dwell on the troubles liquor has caused you, being careful not to moralize or lecture.
Thank you. Miss Linda, coming back to you. If he is enjoying the conversation, do what?
I'm gonna have to pass because I'm lost.
Okay, Stephanie, I'll take it to you. If he is enjoying the conversation, do what?
If his mood is light, tell him humorous stories of your escapades.
Thank you. Nancy, encourage him to do what?
Get him to tell some of his.
Thank you. William, once he sees that you know what you're talking about, what do we do?
When he sees you knows all about the drinking, then commence to describe yourself as an alcoholic.
Thank you. Art, tell him what?
Tell him how baffled you were, how you finally learned that you were sick.
Thank you. Linda, give him an account of what?
Give him an account of the struggles you made to stop.
Thank you, Steph. Should we show him what the mental twist leads to?
Show him the mental twist which leads to the first drink of a spree.
Thank you. Nancy, what chapter in the book do we go to explain the insanity of alcoholism?
We suggest you do this as we have done. It's in the chapter on alcoholism.
Thank you.
This is referring to chapter 3, more about alcoholism, which is all about the mental obstruction and untreated alcoholism, and starts on page 30.
Thank you. And William, coming to you, sir. What will this do for him?
He's alcoholic. He will understand you at once.
Thank you. Art, will he maybe enter into a can you top this dialogue?
He will match your mental inconsistencies with some of his own.
Thank you. Miss Linda, two-part question. A, what very important determination are we to make at this point? And B, if we suspect we have a real one, what do we begin to do?
If you're satisfied that he's a real alcoholic, begin to dwell on the hopelessness feature of the malady.
Thank you. Stephanie, two-part question. A, what is the source of your information? And B, what do we try to show him?
Show him, from your own experience, how the queer mental conditions surrounding that first drink prevents normal functioning of the willpower.
Thank you. Nancy, two-part question for you as well. The ladies are on a roll with the two-parters. A, what do we not want to do at this point? And B, unless what?
Don't, at this stage, refer to this book unless he has seen it and wishes to discuss it.
Thank you. William, what do we not call him, even though it's necessary since we have determined that he may be an alcoholic?
And be careful not to brand him as an alcoholic.
Thank you. Art, what is important?
Let him draw his own conclusions.
Thank you. Miss Linda, what do we do if he doesn't think he has a serious drinking problem?
If he sticks to the idea that he can still control his drinking, tell him that possibly he can, if he is not too alcoholic.
Thank you.
Remember Fred's story in chapter 3? They told him what they knew of alcoholism and then left him to learn the truth for himself.
Stephanie, do we tell him the truth anyway?
But insist that if he is severely afflicted, there may be little chance he can recover by himself.
Thank you.
A year later, coming off a drunk, Fred remembered they had told him that if he had an alcoholic mind, he would drink again.
And Miss Nancy, how do we continue to speak of alcoholism?
Continue to speak of alcoholism as an illness, a fatal malady.
William, do we emphasize the powerlessness because of the allergy and the unmanageability because of the alcoholic mind?
Talk about the condition, body and mind, which accompanies it.
Thank you. Art, on what do we keep his attention focused?
Keep his attention focused mainly on your personal experience.
And Linda, what do we explain to him?
We explained that many are doomed who never realize their predicament.
Stephanie, are doctors anxious to tell their alcoholic patients the truth?
Doctors are rightly loath to tell alcoholic patients the whole story unless it will serve some good purpose.
Nancy, two-part question. A, what can we do that the doctors are reluctant to do? And B, why is this so?
But you may talk to him about the hopelessness of the alcoholism because you offer a solution.
William, if we stick to the directions we are given here, what will very likely happen?
You will soon have your own friend admitting he has many, if not all, of these traits of the alcoholic.
Thank you. Art, what will help you get his serious attention?
If his own doctor is willing to tell him that he's an alcoholic, so much the better.
Thank you. Miss Linda, if we have done a good job of describing the disease to our protege, what will he be curious to know?
I'm going to have to pass again.
Stephanie, I'll give the question to you. If we have done a good job describing the disease to our protege, what will he be curious to know?
Even though your protege may not have entirely admitted his condition, he has become very curious to know how you got well.
Thank you. And Nancy, what do we let him do?
Let him ask you that question, if he will.
Thank you. William, tell him what?
Tell him exactly what happened to you.
Thank you. Art, stress what?
Stress the spiritual feature freely.
Thank you. And Linda, what do we do if he is a non-believer?
If the man be agnostic or atheist, make it empathetic that he does not have to agree with your conception of God.
Thank you. Stephanie, he can choose what?
He can choose any conception he likes, provided it makes sense to him.
Thank you. And Nancy, you get the final question of the night. The main thing is that he be willing to do two things. What are they?
The main thing is that he be willing to believe in a higher power, in a power greater than himself, and that he live by spiritual principles.
The spiritual principles are the 12 steps.
Well done, everyone. Thank you. And now the meeting is open for questions, comments, observations, spiritual experiences. Please go ahead and raise your hand. Linda, come on in.
My name is Linda. I'm an alcoholic, and this more or less is the blueprint, working with others on how we're going to deal with this alcoholic, how we're going to work with them to help them to achieve sobriety. There's nothing that a sponsor can say to make you get drunk, and there's nothing they can say to make you stop drinking. You know, it all has to be on the alcoholic. And if they haven't accepted the fact that they're an alcoholic, if they still think that there's still a little hint, there's just still that little chance that they can control this drinking, then they haven't reached their bottom, and they'll continue to go in and out. And I can say that from my own experience, for me. And I kept thinking that I could control it. Of course, the first couple of times, I don't know what they're talking about. I'm not an alcoholic. I can control this. And yeah, I kept getting into more and more trouble. And the lady that was working with me pointed that out to me. She said, if you can control it, how come each time you drink it's more devastating? You get more and more trouble, more and more trouble. She said, you get into so much trouble. She said, you remember less and less. She said, you put yourself at so much jeopardy. She said, let's talk about the last time. I said, no, I don't want to talk about it. See, because then I had to take a look at myself. But she was right, and she planted the seed, and it slowed me down, and it made me seriously think, this is too big for me to handle. Like a pit bull on a leash, on a string rather, There was nothing that I could do to control it. I was defeated. I was beat. And the idea, like it says here in the step book, it says in the step book, it says in the big book, the idea of being able to drink safely has to be smashed. It has to be canceled. It has to be erased. That's it. It's done. And when that lady pointed out to me how things is just getting worse and worse for me, that's when I got that epiphany and that brick in my head. Okay, there is a problem here. There is a problem here. And I'm not controlling it. I'm delusional. I'm not controlling it. And I like what it says about the disease centers in our mind. It does. It's all ends and begins with our thinking. It really does. And if you get someone that's rebellious, and, I had one lady tell me, well, I just want you to, she smoked marijuana and she drank it. She just wanted me to sponsor her on the alcohol, not, the drugs. And I told her the same thing that the sponsor told me when I first came in years ago. I said, listen, you can't be high and sober at the same time. You can't be sober and high at the same time. You have to cut all. Any addiction you have to stop them. I said, and I point out to her, I said, even if you have an addiction of gambling, I said, that will lead you back to a drink. I said, but the main ones you're going to have to deal with right now and work on is the alcohol and the drugs. Well, no, because I'm okay in that. And the drugs just makes me feel okay, and it's just the liquor. No, she didn't understand it was a combination of both that was causing her trouble. And I said, you're not going to tell me how to sponsor you. I said, it's either all or nothing. I said, that's not what we're going to do. I said, maybe you can find another person that'll sponsor you like that. I said, but I'm not. I have to be true to myself. I have to be honest to myself. So therefore, I can be honest with this new prospect that I'm going, that I'm willing to help. I can't say, yeah, okay, you can smoke marijuana. No. Why am I going to promote that? Why am I going to encourage that? No. Any mood mind altering. I don't care whether you're putting it in your arm with a needle, if you're smoking it, whatever. If you're popping a pill, it's all the same. It's all one and the same. I remember one man said that, he said drinking for him was like Tylenol, was a number. He said until it didn't numb anymore. And I could identify with that too, because then it got to the point where I wasn't getting drunk anymore. It wasn't giving me the effects. The problem, the big ugly monster was still there. And it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was going to take me down. And alcohol, this disease of alcoholism, and also, for me, alcohol was just a gateway for the dry goods. So, this addiction, to alcohol and other things, and to the dry goods, it's a beast that they can't defeat it. Nobody. You can't get in the ring with it. Just don't even try to get in the ring with it. And see, if I understand that, then I can understand where this newcomer, why they're coming out of left field telling me things like this. See, if I can understand this disease from reading this big book, the first 164 pages, and I learn about the alcoholism, and it even has something in here, Dr. Alcoholic Addict, it has it in there in one of the stories, and because it addresses that too. Once I can learn about this disease, then I'm better equipped to work with that person. But if I'm not understanding about this disease, and even going in here reading these stories, if I can't understand the mind of an alcoholic, if I just keep thinking from, well, I got sober. Yeah, but what was you doing before you got sober? What struggles did you have? What kind of thinking did you have? Don't forget about that, because you're going to need to remember that so you can help this person. You know, I can't stand on any hilltop sport, what they say, moral hilltop, and dictate and look down at anyone and just tell them this and that. I've told newcomers, you know, I said, it's okay, just keep coming back. One guy was like, I stopped drinking, but it's just the weed. And he shared about it in the meeting. Now, I told him, I said, well, you know what? I said, it took a lot for you to be honest and say that. I said, so I'm glad that you said that. I said, and I just want you to keep coming. That guy got a year clean and sober now. I didn't insult him or put him down, tell him what he had to do. What I did is I told him, it's okay, keep coming back. And I told him about how I was in and out, and I was bouncing in and out, you know, at my age and my mentality, you know. And I said, don't it feel better now that you're clean and sober? He was like, so much better, you know. So we have to give them hope. We have to plant the seed. We have to encourage them. And we can't ridicule them when they fall back, because I don't know who comes in here and gets it straight the first day. I don't know who. It wasn't me. You know, whoever does, but it wasn't me. So I like this. This is a blueprint. You know, it tells you about sharing your experience, tells you about what to do if they're not ready. You know, I had one lady just wanted a shoulder to cry on. I said, but I took you to meetings. I said, I gave you a meeting list, you know, of all the meetings that's in our, because she lives right in my area in the Upper West Side. We got meetings that you can walk to. We got meetings that you can walk to. You know, I got a meeting across the street from me. What? I got a meeting 3 blocks away from me. There's meetings all over. Manhattan is a very small borough. It's not like Brooklyn where you got to get in a bus, or Queens, you got to get a bus, a train and a bus. This is Manhattan, so there's no excuse. There's meetings all around. Plus, on top of it, you have your Zoom meetings. And I gave her all that, and she still refused to go. Now, those people got so much time, so I can't identify. And then it was something else. Then it was this. Then it was that. Then it was, I don't want to, you know, stop my plan. You know, I didn't make a meeting because I don't want to stop my plans. It was a Friday night. She wanted to pop bottles. She wasn't going to make no meeting so it could mess up her high and cancel her drunk. Oh, no. She was not going to make no meeting before she got out there in the street. You know, so I had to leave her alone. And I had to let her know. I said, but don't you remember you said that your daughter is crying, begging you to stop drinking? She was like, wow, you had to bring that up? I said, no, you bring it up. I'm just trying to make you think about, you know, what's all these consequences. Do you love your daughter? Do you love yourself? You said you don't have any friends, so when you go out there and you're drinking, who are you drinking with? You said they're not your friends, so who are you drinking with? And she stopped calling me because it wasn't about you having me as a shoulder to cry on. You know, let's take some action. Let's get busy. She wasn't ready, so I just left her alone. Every now, once in a while, she may come to the church, you know, like this with her nose up, you know. But, hey, if you got a problem and you know that there's resources, you know, it's up to you. It's your decision. You know, it's your decision. And sometimes it gets so bad where it's not, we don't even have the power of choice. That's how bad it gets. You know, we don't even have the power of choice. And I was just praying for this lady that didn't get like that, but I think it did get like that with her. She had the power of choice. So my name is Linda. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you so much, Linda. Have a wonderful evening. William, welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good evening to everybody. My name is William Michael. I love this part of the book, you know, and it's talking about getting to know the alcoholic, you know, and so the alcoholic will get to know themselves, because I'm home with some facts that a lot of other people don't have, even doctors and stuff. They may see stuff, but just get to know the alcoholic, you know. And one thing is not disagreeing with his opinion, because the whole thing would be wasted if I did that. If you think you can stay sober on your willpower, go ahead. And I get a chance to see myself. I get a chance to see myself when I came into the room of Alcoholics Anonymous. Nobody told me. No, I remember one thing they told me, say, keep coming long enough, an alcoholic will show up. If you don't think you're alcoholic, you just keep coming long enough, alcoholic will show up. Because I came in here and I wasn't listening for no solution, but I learned something early on about the fellowship and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that was, they said only 10% of the drink, the other 90% of my thinking, emotion part of it. And I learned whenever I came through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous, all that thinking in my head ceased for that 1 hour when I was in the room, and I came up with a master plan. I said, when that noise started going off in my head, I come to AA. Well, I tell you, with that information they gave me, a belly full of alcohol is just that mix. So that kind of thing. I remember when I didn't even know it was this guy who he worked for the job. He was a counselor for the job that I work on. I went out and talked to him. And I remember me and him sitting there talking, and I began to say stuff to him that I never said to nobody about my drink. And he sit there and he listened to me. But I always say he opened me up like a can of soup. And when I regurgitate all over him, he said, he didn't use the word malady, because I wouldn't know what malady was. But he said, you're a very sick person. And right away, it took up all that anger, that resentment, all that stuff that rose up inside of me that I raised up out of my seat. And he said, but we're going to help you, we're going to help you. And that sort of eased me back down in my seat. So this, where it's a, because a lot of sick is done in the family. Don't meet him through the family. Meet him in an institution. Meet him through a doctor. And that's what we do today. Alcoholics Anonymous. I go into institution, hospital, jails, whatever you have to do to meet them. And if you don't think you're alcoholic, it's okay. It's okay. I'm not going to honor the fight. If you don't like what we have to offer, it's okay. But I can tell you what I did, what happened to me, and it works. It said, get to know your protege. When you get to know your protege, you'll know how to approach him, and that's very important. Everybody, we like. I tell you, from my experience, we like fingerprints. We all came here for whatever path we had to get here, we all wind up at the same place at the same time. Not at the same time, but at the same place. And they used to say something like this. I remember when I first came in, it doesn't matter when you're from Yale, jail, or the park bench. We all just alcoholics, because I thought I could do it with willpower. So I accumulated some materialistic stuff, So I thought I could take that same, what I call willpower. I didn't know God was blessing me, His grace and His mercy was blessing me to do things because of the fear I had fear in the homes, I had fear, ain't nobody going to help me, so I got to do this by myself, So those things sort of motivate me to do, but live it at a time, there isn't no way at that. So definitely this is about me, along with the facts about myself that I can share with another alcoholic, and they open up. And just like I said, I regurgitated all over that guy who sit there and know me, and I didn't even know he was an alcoholic. And later on, when I began to make meetings, I made it when the needed to stop. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Grateful you are with us. Cindy, welcome, Sweet Pickle. Glad you are here.
Hi, thank you. Cindy, recovered alcoholic. I like writing during meetings, and one thing that caught my attention was show him the mental twist which leads to the first drink of a spree. And I was like, what is a mental twist exactly? So I thought of that question, and I wrote down that my time in addiction to alcohol changed the way I thought. Alcohol helped me be more outgoing, help me fit in, help me feel like I was a part of a group, like I belonged where I didn't feel like I belonged without it. It's so cool when a spiritual experience or realization connects me from the big book. So the connection I made tonight is the mental twist is basically rooted in the obsession of alcohol. So thanks for letting me share that.
Thank you, and thank you for being of service tonight. Pinky, come on in. And thank you for your service tonight as well.
Thank you, Jamie. My name's Alyssa, and I'm a recovered alcoholic, and I'm thankful that I can be of service today in this capacity. Because every time I open this book, more gets revealed, and what was revealed to me tonight was this is steps 1 and 2 for them. We ended on 2. The main thing is that he'd be willing to believe in the power greater than himself, and that he lived by spiritual principles. And then on that previous page where it says, let him draw, we're careful not to brand him as an alcoholic, let him draw his own conclusion. Step 1, I had to admit that I was powerless over alcohol and that my life was unmanageable. Nobody else, they could say it, but, nothing was going to be done until I took step 1 and step 2. And as I shared before the meeting, I says usually the family should not tell your story. I understand that this is referring to someone who's in active addiction, or actively drinking. But I'm going through. I get to use these tools to trudge through a situation, because it is life on life's terms, and there's nothing in here that said it would be easy, but everything directs me to that it's possible if I follow the directions, and most of those directions take me to my higher power first, and I'm going to keep going to him first, like it tells me on page 84, and then I'll discuss it with the appropriate person that he sends me to, because I have the clarity today. If I wake up and do an awakening, and the other cool thing that I was able to put in my book, I may not determine which course to take here. I ask God, if I do follow that, but I never correlated that, do the next right thing. Well, doing the next right thing isn't what you think the next right thing is, or what meaning you, Alyssa, it's asking God, right? Because I often hear people say that, and I just take them back to page 84, right? When these crop up, I ask God. But there's another spot that it says, those, what do you call them? The cliche, first things first, do the next right thing, those things. I don't, I'm missing the word.
Cliches.
Cliches, thank you. Those cliches, because that's not how it's outlined here, but when they do say it, there's another piece that I can use as a tool. I've learned through working with others that it doesn't matter if you have 1 day, or if you have 100 or 10,000 days or 20,000 days. If you come in willing to be honest and open-minded, and you bring your higher power, the revealing is limitless. The learning is limitless. My experience is 3 years, but I share that as working with people who have multiple years and decades that they're like, no, this is it. You know how much hope that gives me? I hold on to that as, because I'm living happy, joyous, and free today. Even life on life's terms, even when those roads aren't pretty, you know, it says trudging for a reason, but I stay on track as best as I can. And, you know, every time I get one of those spiritual awakenings, like that aha moment or those spiritual experiences when I can feel my higher power, you know, it's better than any high or suppression that alcohol ever gave me. And to know that that's what can happen if I stay sober one day at a time for the rest of my life, like this, but I have to keep it in today. I have to keep it right here, you know, but that's so hopeful. And, you know, I do, as long as I come in willing, honest, and have that open mind, more is always revealed. And, you know, I never thought I had a purpose in this life. But God shows me that I do. I may not always know the why or what he's going to do with me that day or, you know, in the next 10 minutes, but, you know, my higher power loves me. I'm a living, breathing testament of that. And he's given me a spiritual toolkit. And I'm living a life beyond my dreams. So I'm just going to keep coming back. And I appreciate every single one of you for being a part of my sobriety.
Thank you, Pinky. Xavier, welcome, my friend. Come on in.
Xavier Alcoholic. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I'm sorry, I'm outside right now. It's just a little dark. It's barely warm enough in Minnesota to be outside, so I'm grateful for that. It's not snowing yet. So I think I really appreciate I appreciate this chapter. I think one of the most honorable things I can do as a human being in this life is assist another alcoholic and help them find the tools that have been so freely given to me through Alcoholics Anonymous to have a connection with a higher power and not have to drink one day at a time. Like, that truly is a miracle. And the life I have today is truly a miracle. I suspect, it's my opinion, that everyone in this room is truly a miracle. If we all had an obsession and we're delivered from that, I mean, that's about as amazing as anything I can think of in this world. And, you know, just my personal experience of seeing so many people suffer daily through addiction. You know, just around here in the Twin Cities, like, it's insanely bad. You know, meth, alcoholism, any drug you can think of. If there's so much suffering around me and so much sadness and so much crime, and it's tragic. And if I can reach another human being and just show them through my own experience of the steps and bring them to the book and have them help them find their own path towards a higher power, like, that truly is a magical thing. I like the suggestions they have in chapter 7, like how to approach a prospect that, you know, might be one of us and, you know, maybe suffering right now from another offender. But I think big picture, what I get is the concept of, I don't come in preaching, I really come in sharing my own experience. And I really relate to that. Just in general, you know, whether I'm a newcomer, whether I'm like hours sober, whether I'm days or months, years sober, I think that approach still works really well. And I really appreciate it when people can share their experience and go to the book for guidance. You know, it's always pointing me back to the solution. And it really helps me in general when I approach new alcoholics, just to have a lot of humility. And then when I sponsor, so that it's not Xavier's program or Xavier's trying to run the show or Xavier's going to tell somebody what to do. It's a lot easier than that. And I try to keep it simple. If somebody has a question, I can share my experience and then I can point towards a book. Like, what does a big book tell us to do? And it's constantly anything is an opportunity to go back and utilize these tools and apply them to whatever's going on in my life. So it's like somebody told me once, no matter what happens in the world, like take the worst thing you can think of. I have a decision. I can make a conscious decision. I can use it to get farther from God or closer to God. And if I make a choice to get closer to God with whatever tragedy or perceived tragedy, like that really is a wonderful thing. So, how practical this book is, I think it makes a lot of sense. You know, with my limited experience, I would tend to agree. When I come into a newcomer, when I approach a newcomer with humility, just sharing my experience and not trying to preach to them or, you know, you shoulda, you woulda, you know, you better, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you know, I think that in a practical way it's much more effective, and it allows people to keep their guard down because I'm not coming in attacking them. So that's all I got. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, brother. Glad you are here. I'm going to go ahead and jump in, and that'll give someone else a chance to raise their hand because we have a few minutes left. Good evening, family. My name's Jamie, very grateful recovered alcoholic. And it is Bill's story, Bill and Bob working with AA number 3 and number 4 in this chapter that I use as my guidelines for working with others. And you know, there's something real interesting that I didn't read in this tonight. Doesn't tell me anywhere where I get to tell somebody else that they gotta. I can't tell anybody else, you gotta do this. I can't tell anybody else, you gotta get a sponsor. Can't tell their families that either. And I know a whole lot of sponsors in Alcoholics Anonymous, in the people that they work with that have a really bad case of the you gotas. It's not my place to do that. It tells me that I'm sharing my experience with them of how I got out from under this disease. And yes, maybe I'm qualifying them by listening to them, but I still don't get to say, well, dude, you're an alcoholic. That's not my place to do that. It's my place to take them on the journey to make the self-discovery of whether or not they are an alcoholic, and maybe even what type they are. This chapter also shows us that we work with families. I know a lot of people in recovery who will not work with families at all. And yet, it's something that, even though this was written in 1939 and published in 39, it still has relevance in our world today. Yes, maybe we get many newcomers through the court system, through or fresh out of treatment or other avenues that they take to get here, like child protective services or to stay out of jail or whatever it may be. And those are all good things. But that still doesn't mean that this work still isn't relevant the way that it is suggested. You know, and the thing about doctors, most doctors don't really understand alcoholism today the way that Silkworth understood it in the 30s and the way that some of the other doctors began to understand it. Sure, they know of it and so on, and they might say something like, reduce your drinking, but one of the biggest reasons the doctors and psychologists are reluctant to try and qualify somebody is because they know that they can't. It's not their place to do so. They also know that the chances are real good because, hey, wait a second, is there anybody else in this room besides me that's ever had a resentment over something somebody said? You know, I go to my doctor and he starts telling me stuff I don't want to hear. I just might get resentful and not go back to that doctor because I've got a bad attitude about it, and that just might jeopardize some other health issues. Now I'm gonna say something about the whole clean and sober thing. I don't talk about this too much in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. But I've got some of those outside issues. Like I used to smoke a lot of dope and do a lot of chemicals. But they're outside issues. We deal with one thing and one thing only in Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's we deal with alcoholism and we try and help somebody else get off the alcohol. Now I can't tell somebody else, well, you're not going to be clean and sober if you don't stop smoking pot. Or if you don't stop popping pills. What I can tell them, though, however, is I can tell them the reasons that I believe I'm not clean and sober, if that's what I'm doing. And I've been clean and sober since day one of getting here to Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't do the marijuana maintenance and all those other things. But they're still all outside issues. I'm going to give you an example of something. Anyway, I don't know if any of you have ever known anyone like this, but I certainly have, and I've had some very wonderful people in my life who have had a terrible disease called cancer. And some of them have had to use medical marijuana to ease some of the symptoms that are caused from radiation and chemo and so on. It is absolutely not my place to say, oh, you're not clean and sober if you're doing that. That's between them, their sponsor, and God. Because who in the hell do I think I am to get on some sort of moral high horse and suggest that they would have to suffer in pain and agony from a hideous disease? You know, it is not my call to do that. It's only my place to tell them why for me, clean and sober is clean and sober. And again, all of those things are outside issues. You know, are we the arbiter of somebody else's sex life? It tells us in the book that we're not, that we don't wish to be the arbiter over their sex life. If someone has a gambling problem or seeks out paid for company late in the evening, it's not my place to say. Those are outside issues. I'm dealing with alcoholism. And here's my experience on that. Maybe they do have some of those outside issues. I certainly did. But if we can approach the alcoholism first, then maybe they will say, well, I want more. I don't like the feeling of being impaired anymore. And maybe they will take the next step towards being free from everything. But it really is up to the individual. Is it impossible to take the steps if you're stoned? I have no idea. But here's what I do know. Trying to take the steps and continue to drink are incompatible with one another. I cannot effectively take the steps. I can't even effectively take step one if I'm still drinking. I can admit I'm an alcoholic. But if I'm still drinking, it means that I really haven't accepted it to my innermost self yet. And therein lies my struggle. So, here again, these are the guidelines for working with someone new. And it doesn't matter if it's somebody that is stumbling drunk that I pick up off the ground at Walmart and see if I can give them a hand, or someone who comes to us from the court through the court system. If I have an opportunity to be helpful, I need to exercise that opportunity to be helpful without judgment, without criticism. There's nothing that will chase an alcoholic out of the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous faster than criticism. And you know what? Our book doesn't teach me to criticize others. Cooperate, never criticize. To be helpful is our only aim. You know, these are some of the most powerful suggestions to help another human being recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And yet, all I have to do is follow the suggestions here, because these suggestions are for me. These suggestions are to help me better at just trying to help another one of God's kids. Larry, come on in.
Yeah, I'm Larry, and I'm an alcoholic. Thanks, Jamie. That's great. I was sitting here thinking, you know, when I first started working with others when I was, you know, young and in service, I was just anxious to work with them, and I didn't really, you know, when somebody asks, you want to work with me, I just say, well, yeah, I'll be glad to work with you, and I still say that today. I may qualify as far as being a sponsor today by, I'll pray about that, and I want you to pray about that, and see what our higher power has to say, and if we're compatible, and if we feel like it's a good match, then I'll sponsor you. And but for right now, I'll be glad to help you. And if you don't feel like it's a good match, then you just let me know. And but I remember early on, I was working with this guy, and you know, we did step one, and I always spent a lot of time on step one, because that was the one that I believe is so important to get into our innermost being, that we are not like other people, that we are an alcoholic. And I spent time, and he went through that step. We got to step two, and I talked about, are you willing to believe in a power greater than yourself to restore you to sanity? And I didn't think a whole lot about it, but he qualified after I don't know if he really was into that type of thing, or if he was just trying to jerk my chain. I am not sure, you know, today. But I do know he said, you know, Satan is my higher power. And I remember that night when he said that, I said, oh, well, he certainly is a higher power. And that's about all I said. But I got on the phone after we hung up, and I got on the phone with my sponsor. Said, how do you get out from under working with somebody that you said you'd work with? Because I didn't feel like I could qualify, you know, even though, you know, I just couldn't relate. I personally felt like I had a conflict. And I remember my sponsor, he wasn't too, he wouldn't let me off that easy. he said, Larry, this program does not allow us to force our higher power on anybody. it does not allow us to choose a higher power for somebody else. And I said, yeah, but. And he said, yeah, but nothing. He said, this is what you need. And I remember he said, yeah, but ask him some questions. And I remembered the wisdom of what he asked me to do. He said, ask him when you see him, tell him that you will be glad to work with him as that as his higher power. If he can answer yes fervently, honestly, rigorously honestly, because the program outlines with us what it calls a higher power. That it, first of all, it offers us hope. It offers us a way out. It offers us sanity. And he said, he said for me to ask, do you honestly believe that this higher power honestly wants you sober and sane and to stop drinking, and that he has your best interest in mind, that he is a higher power that is of love, because the program outlines that the higher power shows us love. I said, and if you can say that truly, that he does have your best interest at heart, then you can choose that as your higher power. And I remember a long pause, and he said, no, I can't say that. And I said, well, I'm not telling you who to choose. And, I worked with this guy for around 2 more years. We went through the steps. He did not choose my higher power. He chose another higher power, but I still worked with him. I worked with the higher power he did choose, and it was he chose a meditation type and a more educational style of higher power, and he worked at it, and he worked at it very hard, and he did the program, and he as far as I know, the last that I talked with the guy, he was still sober, and that's been over 10 years ago. We don't always get to choose exactly what somebody is going to believe and what somebody is going to do, but what we are required to do is to work with somebody, to help somebody to stay sober. I worked with many that I've had the privilege to help them grow in a more spiritual life, in a way that goes more into my understanding and belief of the way that I live and the principles that I live. But for this guy, it was all about not drinking. It was all about not being the same person he was when he came into the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous. And to that end, he did. And my sponsor gave me that opportunity because I was ready to quit that night. And I'm thankful for the wisdom of those that are before us and those that help us through difficult decisions and different things. That's about all I've got.
Thank you, Larry. Glad you are with us tonight. Art, you have anything you'd like to add before we close out? See, I know how to pick on you. You taught me how to do that.
My name is Art. I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic. And, you know, as we were reading this portion of the chapter tonight, it occurred to me that there are things that are in this chapter that we don't practice today. For example, I don't know of anybody in the time that I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous that goes to a doctor or a clergyman and asks for leads to somebody to work with. I have not met anybody that did that. Now, in the early days of Alcoholics Anonymous, that was their only source. But today we have all kinds of other ways of. I've never had a problem, or I've never been in a situation where I had to look for somebody to work with. They've always come to me. And the methods of presenting the program are certainly applicable to our situation nowadays. But the way we find people to work with is different. Until I came here to South Carolina, I haven't really sponsored anybody here. I mean, I talk to people and I'll work with people. I have sponsored a few, and I've worked with them. But I never was in a position where I needed to look for, because I always had people come to me and ask for help. And it's still the same way today. I mean, I'm just, even though I don't have any active sponsees in the area here now, that's okay. I mean, I'm fine with what I do. But I think it's something that, the portion of the chapter that we read tonight talks about the way we approach somebody who maybe has never heard of Alcoholics Anonymous, or certainly doesn't know anything about what we do. And we have very few opportunities for that type of situations today, because if somebody has a problem, there are too many places for people to go, and if And so we get them after they've come out of detox or after they've finished some kind of a 30-day program or something, and then they come to us because that's what they told them they should do. And so, but we still have to approach them where they're at. I mean, it's not reasonable for me to expect that somebody who's fresh out of a 30-day program, rehab program, to understand and know what Alcoholics Anonymous is all about, even though they may have been pushed into that study of steps in the program that they were in. They still have a lot to learn about it, and may not fully understand what it is that they're doing or have done. So we still have to approach them in a manner that allows them to be who they are and to make their own, come to their own conclusions. Allows them to pick their own higher power. Allows them to do what seems best for them. At the same time, guiding them through the process of the steps, according to the book. You know, it takes all kinds. I mean, it takes what it takes to get us here. I went through at least 2 different outpatient court-ordered programs before I finally got here. So, you know, when they talk about going to the doctor or to your priest or pastor or rabbi or whatever, looking for people to work with, I've just never had that experience. And I don't think there's a whole lot of opportunity for that kind of thing nowadays. You know, Alcoholics Anonymous is much wider, much more known. And so, you know, I mean, every now and then we'll find somebody will come in that had no idea that Alcoholics Anonymous even existed, but that's rare. Most of the people that I have sponsored in the last 20 or 30 years are not new to the concept of Alcoholics Anonymous. They've been exposed to it before. Some of them just weren't ready for it. Some of them didn't have perhaps the opportunity to really understand it. So the idea of working with others is one that is imperative, is important to my own sobriety, as well as being important in the aspect of helping others to recover. And so I think we have to let's kind of look at this chapter with the understanding that this was written just 2 or 3 years after Bill and Bob got together. And so the first 100 people that collaborated in the writing of this book didn't have the experience that we're looking at here nowadays, 80 some years later. And you know, having become a worldwide organization. So there are some things that we have to adjust, and this is one of those things that. And I'm not saying that we need to rewrite anything. I'm just saying that we have to adjust our approach to match what we see. Anyway, that's all I have. Thanks.
And thank you for sharing all of that, Art. Always appreciate your wisdom. Pinky, would you like to read us out?
Yes. From page 164. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we only know a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. Obviously, you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then.
Thank you so much, Alyssa, and thank you for your service tonight. Well, family, we've got a real special way of closing out in this room since we can't circle up like we would in a bricks and mortar meeting. We all virtually hold hands together. Before we close out, and it just seems fitting with this topic that we read tonight. You know, there's going to be 263 alcoholics who die in this country today. This country, 95,000 throughout the year, and 3 million worldwide. And sadly, many have been to Alcoholics Anonymous and didn't have what we want. Maybe when we have someone who's coming back into the rooms, we should treat them with kindness and gentleness and display a recovery that is attractive rather than promotive, and be an example of what you can become in Alcoholics Anonymous. After a moment of silence for those who are sick and suffering, please join me in the Lord's Prayer. Here's your moment. Thank you. Who will take us from shame to grace if we let Him? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in the heavens. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thanks. Thank you so much, folks.
Because you're worth it.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
We'll see everybody.
Cindy, did you get my answer?
But